At my birthday dinner, she laughed and said, "You're not exactly Instagram material, so don't expect any photos tonight." Everyone laughed except me. But when the cake came out and she saw who brought it, the whole table went silent. I've been with Jenna for 4 years. To understand what happened last night, you need to understand the woman I thought I was dating versus the woman she became. When we met, she was incredible, sharp, funny, driven, and had this warmth that made you feel like the only person in the room. We built a life together. I was the stable one, the quiet one. I have a good job that I'm proud of, one that allowed us to have a beautiful apartment and travel a little. She was the social one, the one with the vibrant circle of friends. In the beginning, it worked. I grounded her and she brought me out of my shell. Over the last 2 years, though, something shifted. Her 2 best friends, Ashley and Maya, became a constant presence. They are the kind of people who live their lives through a phone screen. Every brunch, every walk in the park, every single moment had to be curated, filtered, and posted for validation. Slowly, they started to change. Jenna, the woman who once loved quiet nights in with the movie, started talking about our brand as a couple. The woman who used to praise my work started making little comments about how it wasn't very glamorous. She became obsessed with appearances, with creating a life that looked perfect, even if it didn't always feel that way. I put up with it because I loved her. I saw glimpses of the old Jenna underneath the surface, and I kept hoping she would re-emerge. I supported her ventures, including the small online business she ran with Ashley and Maya, a boutique that sold overpriced home decor. I wasn't a S. I was a partner holding on to the belief that the person I fell for was still in there. I paid the majority of the rent on our apartment and handled most of the bills. Not because she couldn't, but because my income was more stable and it allowed her the freedom to pursue her passions. That was the arrangement we made, and I was happy to do it. That was my mistake. I didn't realize she had started to see my support not as a partnership, but as a service. Which brings us to last night, my 35th birthday. Jenna had planned the whole thing, a dinner at a trendy, expensive restaurant downtown called Aperture. It was the kind of place with mood lighting, so dim you could barely read the menu, where every plate is designed to be photographed. The guest list was small: me, Jenna, and her 2 loyal lieutenants, Ashley and Maya. From the moment we sat down, I felt less like the guest of honor and more like an accessory she was begrudgingly carrying. The 3 of them were a whirlwind of activity, taking selfies, adjusting their hair in the reflection of their butter knives, and staging photos of their cocktails. I just sat there nursing a whiskey. The first real jab came when the appetizers arrived. Ashley slid a plate of oysters into the perfect lighting and snapped a dozen photos. "Jenna, you have to post these. The aesthetic is everything tonight." Jenna looked at me, then back at her friends and laughed. It was a brittle, dismissive sound. "Oh, we're not posting anything with him in it tonight. Let's be honest." She looked directly at me and said the words that changed everything. "You're not exactly Instagram material, so don't expect any photos tonight." Ashley and Maya burst into laughter, high-pitched and cruel. It wasn't a joke, it was a judgment, a declaration. In their world of curated perfection, I was the flaw, the thing to be hidden. I just stared at her. The hurt was sharp, but something else was sharper. Clarity. The fog of hope I'd been living in for 2 years vanished. I saw her and her friends for exactly who they were. I didn't say a word. I just gave a small, tight smile and took a sip of my whiskey. The old me would have been wounded. The new me, born in that exact moment, started making a plan. The rest of the dinner was a blur of their chatter. They talked about influencers I'd never heard of, trips they were planning, and how their online boutique was about to get a huge new client that would change everything. They spoke as if I wasn't even there. I just listened, nodding occasionally, my mind working like a machine, assembling pieces, calculating trajectories. Jenna must have mistaken my silence for submission. As the main courses were cleared, she patted my hand with a sickeningly sweet smile. Don't be so sensitive, babe. You know I'm just teasing. We'll get a photo of you with your cake." "Of course," I said, my voice even. I wouldn't miss it. The waiter came over. "Will we be having dessert this evening?" Before I could speak, Jenna cut in. "Oh, that's all been taken care of. We have a special cake being delivered." She winked at Ashley and Maya, who giggled, in anticipation. They thought they were in complete control of the evening's narrative. We waited. 10 minutes later, I saw movement near the restaurant's entrance. The manager was personally escorting someone through the dining room. Jenna, Ashley, and Maya all sat up straighter, phones at the ready, expecting some pastry chef with a fancy box. But it wasn't a pastry chef. It was a woman named Isabella Rossi. To understand the significance, you have to understand who Isabella is in our city. She's a legend. She started with a single tiny Italian restaurant 2 decades ago and built it into a culinary empire. She's respected, she's powerful, and she's known for not suffering fools. She is, in the world of Ashley and Maya, the ultimate status symbol. She walked towards our table carrying a simple, elegant cake. She wasn't dressed like a delivery person. She was dressed in a sharp-tailored suit, looking like she owned the place, which in a way she did. Her reputation owned every restaurant in this city. Jenna's jaw went slack. Ashley and Maya looked like they'd seen a ghost. They were fumbling for their phones, but also frozen in shock. Isabella arrived at our table and placed the cake directly in front of me. She ignored the 3 women completely. She smiled a warm, genuine smile at me and said, "Happy birthday, partner. Sorry I'm late. The final permits for the new venue came through. We're officially green-lit." She placed a hand on my shoulder. I couldn't let my investor celebrate his 35th without the best tiramisu in the city. The entire table went silent, a deep, profound silence that sucked all the air out of the room. Jenna's face had gone from smug to confused to utterly horrified. In the span of about 10 seconds, she was staring at me, her mouth slightly open. Ashley and Maya were looking back and forth between me, Jenna, and Isabella, their brains visibly short-circuiting. I looked at Jenna, the fake smile gone from my face, replaced by a calm I hadn't felt in years. I picked up my fork, cut a piece of the cake, and said, "Jenna, you remember my silent partner, Isabella, don't you?" I'm sure I've mentioned her. I hadn't, of course. For the past year, I had been quietly investing in Isabella's new flagship restaurant, a project that was the talk of the town. I wasn't just some silent money man. I was a strategic partner handling the logistics and property side of the deal. It was my biggest venture, and I'd kept it completely to myself. Jenna just stared, speechless. The woman who had just declared me not Instagram material was now sitting across from the most photographed and respected respirator in the state who had just called me her partner. The irony was so thick you could taste it, and it was sweeter than any cake. Update 1. The silence at that dinner table was the most satisfying sound I have ever heard. Jenna, Ashley, and Maya just sat there paralyzed. Isabella, a true professional, didn't linger. She wished me a happy birthday one more time, gave me a knowing look that said, "We'll talk later," and walked away, leaving a crater in the middle of our table. Jenna finally found her voice, a weak, stammering whisper. "Partner, investor, what is she talking about?" "Isabella and I have been working on her new restaurant for the last year," I said calmly, taking another bite of the tiramisu. It was, as promised, the best I'd ever had. I handled the site acquisition and the build-out. It's a business venture I've been very excited about. Ashley and Maya were staring at me like I had grown a second head. The disdain they usually wore was gone, replaced by a frantic, confused respect. Suddenly, the boring guy who wasn't Instagram material was a player in their world of status and connections. The car ride home was a masterclass in awkward silence. Jenna kept trying to start a conversation, and her voice unnaturally high. "I just don't understand why you wouldn't tell me about something so huge. We're supposed to be a team. You seemed Pretty busy focusing on our brand, I replied, not taking my eyes off the road. I didn't want to bother you with the details. The moment we walked into our apartment, the facade crumbled. What was that, Mark? She demanded. You brought Isabella Rossi to my dinner to humiliate me. It was my birthday dinner, Jenna. I corrected her, and I didn't bring her. She came as a friend, as a partner. The fact that you were humiliated by that says more about you than it does about me. She didn't have an answer for that. She just stood there watching as I went into the spare room and closed the door. I slept on the pull-out couch that night. The next morning, I was up before she was. I made my coffee, got dressed, and left. Before I walked out, I placed a single, freshly printed document on the kitchen counter where she'd be sure to see it, a 60-day notice to vacate the premises. The apartment was mine. I'd signed the lease long before she moved in, and she was never officially added to it. Legally, she was a tenant, and I was her landlord. It was a cold, brutal move, but her comment at dinner had shown me that our relationship was just a transaction. I was simply ending the business arrangement. My phone started blowing up around 90 kwarn im, a string of frantic texts. What is this? You can't be serious? You're kicking me out? After everything? I didn't reply. Instead, I called a company that specializes in high-end home staging and liquidation. I explained the situation. I had an apartment full of furniture, and decor I wanted gone, professionally cleared and prepared for sale by the end of the day. They assured me it was a rush job, but for the right price, it could be done. I told them the price was no object. While Jenna was at work trying to process the eviction notice, a team of 6 professionals descended on our apartment. They worked with quiet, ruthless efficiency. Every throw pillow, every scented candle, every piece of beige furniture that Jenna and her friends had spent months curating for their aesthetic was wrapped, boxed, and removed. They cleared out her closets, packing her clothes into wardrobe boxes. They took everything that wasn't a personal keepsake of mine. When they were finished, the apartment was empty, echoing, and sterile. It was a blank canvas. Then the staging company I'd hired came in. They brought in sleek, modern furniture, bold art, and professional lighting. By 4:00 p.m., the apartment didn't look like our home anymore. It looked like a feature in an architectural magazine. It looked expensive, tasteful, and masculine. It looked like a place a successful investor would live. At 4:30 p.m.,